All right, the new LG Gram for 2021. This is a family of laptops that has evolved quite a bit over the years. Like the original LG Gram was really focused, almost laser focused on being as light as possible at the expense of performance and a whole bunch of other things. But over the years, they've had to adapt and kind of reconfigure what the LG Gram was all about. And at this point, I feel like it's gotten to the stage where it's just a really good overall product. And I feel like for a lot of people who are looking for a new device, this is going to be on that short list. So there's a whole bunch of new features and stuff they've added this year, but I want to draw your attention to a new device. So they have a new 16-inch model this year. They've had 14, 15, even 17 in the past, but the new one is the 16-inch. And of the bunch, this is probably my favorite. It's that perfect size and weight combination while still retaining really good battery life. It actually has the best battery life of the bunch. But we will talk about a few features they've added. So they now all have 16:10 aspect ratio screens, so there's just more vertical real estate. It's the same kind of overall screen size, but you just get more room on the top and bottom. And it's something that a lot of people appreciate. The only thing it's not great for is if you're watching shows, there's now black bars on the top and bottom, but for everything else, that extra space is nice. And they've also added, finally, USB-C charging. And I don't mean like optional USB-C charging or the capability of it. It's the only way to charge this device. USB-C right into the port, comes with a 65 watt adapter. It's something I've been hoping for on the LG Grams forever. And it was strange to me, like on a device like this, a premium device that's so focused on weight and portability, to not have USB-C was weird, but now you don't even need to bring a regular charger. You could use, in theory, your phone charger to juice this thing up. It's probably my favorite feature on this year's Gram. Okay, they've also added new CPUs. So all three now run Intel's latest Tiger Lake CPUs, and we'll get into performance in a little bit. But that's the lineup. The very portable 14-inch model that's still under a kilogram, the big screened 17-inch model that's weirdly light. Like every time I pick this thing up, it almost doesn't make sense as to how this thing has such a low weight for such a big screen. And then lastly, the 16-inch model. And all three of these are obviously very light, and I wouldn't be surprised if some, maybe all of them, hold records for like the lightest laptop in the world. Now, in terms of the aesthetics, they are slightly different than the previous years. So they're cleaner looking this year. The design lines have this industrial vibe to it, but there's also this feature on the hinge that when you open the device, it kind of tucks a portion of the bezel behind the keyboard deck. Like the bottom bezel, like the chin, when you open the device, it just kind of goes below the hinge. So visually it's an illusion, right? The chin is still there, but you just can't see it as readily. It's a nice little visual tweak they've made. I think it looks nice, but it keeps the thin bezel design uniform around the whole screen. The 14-inch model has a full HD screen, but the 17 and 16-inch models have quad HD panels. These are really nice looking displays. Like they're colorful, they're bright. They don't, however, have a matte finish. They are a glossy panel, which I personally love, but everyone's different on that. And they also don't have touch screens, which is something you often see on glossy panels like this, but I assume in a move to keep the weight down and the pricing reasonable, it's just a regular screen. It's just glossy. So there's also a webcam up top. It's not amazing, but it's usable. And I think that's all that really matters in this day and age. Okay, let's talk about the keyboards. So they all look very similar. They've changed from previous models. One thing is they've removed that orange color accent that they used to have. It's a more minimal looking keyboard, but this is a nice keyboard. I think most people really enjoy typing on it. They do, however, type slightly different from each other. It's the strangest thing. I mean, it's hard to tell, right? When you're typing on it, if I did like a blindfold test, I think they're actually different. The 17-inch model feels slightly more clicky to me, but it's probably in my head. Like it wouldn't make sense for them to switch different membranes between the three different keyboards. That'd be really strange. So I'm probably going crazy, but it does, for whatever reason, feel slightly different. The touchpads are bigger this year. One of the issues that people have had with the Grams in the past is having smaller trackpads, but this year it's noticeably bigger, as well as still having that nice smooth glass surface and a nice click mechanic. This is a good trackpad. I think most people like it. And you can see the chin thing I was talking about, right? That whole reduced bezel on the bottom. It's a bit of an illusion, but it's pretty cool. Okay, let's talk about performance. So all three of these are running Tiger Lake chips. And in terms of the overall performance, I guess the word I want to use is content. I was going to use the word happy with it. I'm content. So if you compare it to last year's model, it's an improvement, but these use chips that have incredible potential. Like if you put the same chip in a laptop that's cooled more aggressively, you can get some really good performance, particularly graphics performance. But because these are 15-watt variants, they're not as powerful as they could be, and they can't sustain a high clock speed for extended periods of time. The way that I look at it is this. On the 14-inch model, I feel like it gets a pass. When you pop this thing open, there's no more room in there for anything really, right? It's a pretty packed device, but on the 16 and particularly the 17-inch model, there's room. You could totally have revamped it or redesigned the fans so that you could cool this thing better. And if they had cooled this thing really aggressively, I think that you could have gotten like good gaming performance out of this chip. Like if you look at the motherboards, clearly they're sharing the exact same main motherboard and thermal system across all three devices. I'm sure it helps to keep the cost down, and on a 14 and 16-inch model, maybe it gets a pass, but on the 17-inch model, because there's so much room in there, I can't help but wish that they had put something to accommodate for the potential of this chip. But I get it. It's the LG Gram and they're focused on weight, so adding another fan would have bumped it up by, who knows, 150 grams, 100 grams, and that would have been unacceptable to the Gram family. Okay, the ports. So these have a pretty good selection of ports. So there's the two USB-C on one side with the display out, like HDMI, and then there's two USB-A, which on a device like this, like ultra thin, 2021, to have 4 USB ports, 2 of them being USB-A, it's not common. I like seeing that. There's also a micro SD, if that's your jam. All right, battery life. The 17 and 16-inch models share the same battery size. They're both 80 watt hours. I got 9.5 hours on the 17, a little bit more than 9.5. So I compared it to last year's data. It was slightly longer than last year, also around 9.5 on the 17-inch model, but a little bit better. And I think I was running the test identically. So my guess is that the chip is slightly more efficient this year. And on the 16-inch, it's actually the longest running. It's just under 10 hours. This is on my test. They make claims of like 10 hours or like 5,000 hours. It doesn't matter. Those are unrealistic to me. But 9.5 on the 17, slightly under 10 on the 16. The 14-inch is the lowest of the bunch. It has a 72 watt hour battery, so it's slightly smaller, but I was consistently getting 9 hours on this thing, but that's just my testing. Okay, so the rest of the stuff inside, you got 2 NVMe slots on all 3 of these, so you can have some really fast drives in there. The RAM is soldered on, there's 16 gigs, and you can see it up top, and the Wi-Fi card is also baked on. So you want to replace those or swap them, you cannot. The speakers down here sound okay, like they're slightly different looking than the previous year's model, but they sound very similar. I feel like with the amount of space that's available in that area, you could put a ton of speakers. So LG, if you ever watch this, you should probably do something by putting just better or bigger or more speakers in there to make it like a really good sound system. You have the space, you clearly have the space. So it would be cool if you did that instead of having these predictably mediocre sound systems. Okay, I cannot understate, that's the wrong word, overstate. I cannot overstate the lightness of these things. It's just like, they're so weirdly light. It's awesome. If you want portability, you want that ultralight experience, these are a really good choice this year. Now, in terms of pricing, I don't have pricing on any of this stuff yet. It's relatively early in the launch cycle, but I do remember that last year, I mean, these things go on sale pretty regularly, but I remember the 17-inch model hitting, I think like $1,200. It was crazy to have that kind of configuration and this screen size and this kind of package for that kind of pricing. So keep an eye out for the sales on these things. Okay, that's the LG Gram lineup. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. See you guys next time.